next guest on Soup with Coop is a Rutgers alum, a Super Bowl champion, and the only person to have alphabet soup on our show, my good friend Shaun O'Hara. Welcome to Soup with Coop, my friend.
Coop, thanks for having me, man. My man, I had to raid the kids' soup collection, and I thought I could spell your name in the alphabets, but I'm just having a hard time finding the O's. Do you have any O's in yours?
It's funny you mentioned that. I've got nothing but O's.
Perfect. Yeah, there's two O's in Coop, right?
Yes, there are, and there are no O's in Shaun, but there's a big AU, which I like. Shaun.
There's a big O in O'Hara.
A very big one. Speaking of that, you're like in the Irish Hall of Fame, aren't you?
I should be. I think, it depends on who you speak with, because the true Irish people and from back in the day, they think I should spell my name S-E-A-N. So there is always some conversation about the way that I spell it. My parents obviously wanted to make life difficult for me. But I will say this. People don't understand the gift and the curse of being Irish and having an apostrophe in your name. There are many times where it's great and it's awesome and it kind of distinguishes you amongst your peers. It also enables you to participate in libations without any judgment whatsoever. But the apostrophe, Coop, let me tell you, hotel reservations, flight reservations, anything to do with a computer, the apostrophe is like a virus that just can disrupt any kind of hard drive, and it can just throw everything into total berserko mode.
Yeah, you don't want to be. You're probably not Y2K compliant with an apostrophe. What about like applying for a passport? Do you have to? Is it a separate spot to put the apostrophe?
It all depends on who is entering it into the computer, because it can be a complete space. So then they think I'm Shaun O'Hara. They think O is my middle initial, which almost ruined a trip to Disney, because they canceled my reservation at the hotel because I didn't call them back or something. And they had it as Shaun O'Hara, and I was showing up as O'Hara. And they said, well, we don't have a room for you. And the wife was giving me straight daggers at that moment.
What is your middle name? Do you have a good middle name?
We solved that. My middle name is Frederick. So yes, that name should get me into the Irish Hall of Fame.
There's a whole different, being a center from New Jersey who played at Rutgers, who's kind of captaining the Giants offensive line, to Frederick O'Hara is a totally different human being. That guy is reading poetry on the weekends and just absolutely sipping on a scotch just from time to time.
Yeah, Frederick is drinking and eating loudmouth soup with brown spectacles. Do you have any of those?
Yeah, I do actually. This is what Frederick would wear.
Oh. Hello, Frederick O'Hara here. Hello. He's from New Jersey, over here, I think.
How do you like my new map? I've always been infatuated with maps, and I just thought you might learn something other than what's coming out of my mouth. So
I love the map. You know what I love? I love the old. Can you name all of the capitals of every state? And geographically, it's funny how some people have zero idea like where Idaho is, or like, where is South Dakota on the map? Like they just
right there, right?
At all, right behind you.
Yeah, there. How does a guy wind up at Rutgers? People from the South, I don't think recognize that Rutgers is the University of New Jersey State, like if you will. Why is it called Rutgers? And then tell me about Rutgers, because all I've ever talked about when they say, Eli, where's Eli live? I say he lives in New Jersey. And I said all three of his girls are going to go to Rutgers, and people look at me like it makes no sense to them. So tell me about Rutgers, because I think I'm a little in the a little naive.
Yeah, I think Rutgers would be a great choice for Eli's kids. It'll be a lot cheaper than sending to Princeton, and I think that way it doesn't cut into Eli's golf memberships. I'd hate for him to have to give one of them up to put his kids through college. I think Rutgers, it definitely, I think people have all kinds of different preconceived notions about Rutgers. Yes, the State University of New Jersey. Nobody wanted to go to that school. So that's why we had to come up with a great name. It had to be something different than the State University of New Jersey or New Jersey, depending on where you're at in the state. But Rutgers, from what I know, was started by Henry Rutgers, who I think donated a bunch of money to the university, and it was named after him. As you know, it's the birthplace of college football. So quite the roots in college football. I've heard every joke in the book, Coop, on this one. They were the birthplace of college football, and then they got kicked out of the house for a long time, and then now they're allowed back in the house. There was some misbehavior, and they were staying out too late, breaking curfew. So we weren't considered a part of college football for a while, and now we're back in the Big Ten. But I grew up all over the world. I was born in Chicago, lived in Kentucky, Texas, Ohio. Then I moved to Jersey in high school. My most influential years were high school and college, and they were both in New Jersey. So my original dream, you mentioned me being an Irish guy, I was going to go to Notre Dame. I was going to play for the Chicago Bears. So that was kind of my thing. I was born in Chicago. My dad was a legend in Chicago, in the suburbs. And that was kind of my dream. So I just kind of went the alternate route. I became the Rudy of Rutgers and walked on there and kind of created my own name. But it was 25 minutes from my parents' house. I didn't get any Division I scholarship offers. I got a couple of 1AA offers from Hofstra and Lehigh and Bucknell and some other schools. And Rutgers invited me to walk on and try to make the team. And I thought, you know what? That sounds like a better option. And being 25 minutes away, I could still come home on Sundays and get my mom's home cooked pasta and get some clean laundry.
It's amazing to me how many people I talk to who, in your case, win Super Bowls or now on the NFL Network talking about what's going on in football. I'm inundated with all this recruiting stuff. They got to be so wrong on so many kids. I mean, you weren't even in the world of rivals and 247. You wouldn't have even been in the hard to find Shaun O'Hara. Yet Rutgers finds you, rolls a dice on you, and then you probably weren't. What'd you weigh coming out of high school?
Yeah, I was 235 my first day at Rutgers. I walked on as a defensive end. The only reason Rutgers even knew I existed was because my quarterback, Eric Jones, was a stud, and everybody was coming to our high school. They were flocking like the sound of Capistrano to recruit Eric Jones. My high school coach, Rick Mance, was like, hey, take a look at this kid. And the kicker for me was I played basketball, Coop. So by the end of the basketball season, I was 215 pounds. And college coaches are coming and looking at me, and they're like, he's not 235, he's 215. So they just never thought I was going to be big enough. But the recruiting aspect of it, no, you're 100% correct. Like, think about how hard we are on NFL teams when a draft pick doesn't work out. Right. College coaches, they recruit kids, and it's like you never hear from them. They were a 4 or 5 star kid, and then 2 years later, they're standing on a bus stop somewhere. Just one quick little story on that. When I came to Rutgers, there was 28 freshmen, and we had 3 non-scholarship guys, but 25 on-scholarship guys. You know how many guys graduated in the same class? By the time we all got to seniors, there were 7 of us left. So really? In that amount of time, there was basically, 22 guys were JUCO guys, so they graduated, but there were about 20 kids that just disappeared within 4 years, whether it was, failed academically, a transfer, didn't pan out, quit.
I like these stories because then, you pay your dues and put on weight, become a lineman, change positions. And I've played golf with you and seen you're an athletic guy. You're an athlete, and just, you've morphed your body. I mean, you're a good athlete. You look at
it doesn't transition to the golf course.
Well, that doesn't mean anything, but you can just, you can see a guy walking to lunch and say, guy's an athlete. And then
I need your touch. 100 yards in is what I need to spend more time with you. 100 yards in, you're a knockdown.
Sadly, it takes me a long time to get to that 100 yards. Is a problem.
Listen, let me just give everybody a perspective and playing golf with Coop. He's 100 yards in. What is it? 95 yards? 95 yards? Okay. How do you hit this shot? You just got to pick it clean, right? Before every shot, how do you hit this shot is what he says. And then he sticks it like 6 inches from the hole. And he's like, how was that? He's in the bunker. How do you hit a sand shot? I don't know. He's 85 yards out. Boom, out of the sand, 6 inches from the pin. 100 yards in, and all day long, I'll put money on you.
The people who've played golf with me the last month need to hear this because they saw a different story. But I do appreciate the shout out. My ego is waffling right now, so it needed a little boost. But then the same way, you're fighting uphill, you play, and then you go. Did you even go to the combine? Because you didn't get drafted. And I think that's what I'm getting to is the battle never stopped for you. It was just an uphill climb to kind of validate yourself.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm climbing that hill. Coop, it was definitely the road less traveled. I walked on at college, and then I essentially walked on in the NFL, like you're talking about. I did not get invited to the combine. I remember my crowning college achievement was I got a letter from the Hula Bowl. That was the only bowl game I ever played in college. And it was the All-Star game down in Hawaii that nobody cares to play in. Everybody just wants to go there and hang out. So that was kind of like I have a shot at the next level. Because that's, one of the toughest things at college to do is to really, wrap your head around, am I good enough? Am I big enough? Am I strong enough to play at the next level? So not getting invited to the combine was a blow. I didn't get drafted. So I sat there. You remember back when the draft was 3 days long. It started on a Friday and went Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, I watched the first round knowing that was never going to happen, but just I'm a fan of football, so watch it. But by Sunday, I was like, hey, there's a chance, and I got a couple calls, and, it didn't work out. I ended up signing with the Browns as a free agent. But I like sharing the story with a lot of guys, college kids, high school kids, because, not everybody can be a first round pick, but you can still go on and have a long career. Even if you don't get invited to some of these things. My claim to fame is my first invitation to the combine, Coop, came from the NFL Network.
Yeah. Were you as excited about that as you would have been as a 22-year-old?
I was more excited because I didn't have to run a 40. I just had to talk about it.
Was it daunting going into first time going as a free agent going into NFL camp with the Browns? So you look around going, you still kind of like, should I be invited to this party?
No doubt. We didn't have cell phone cameras back then, but if I had one, I would have immediately taken a picture of my name on the top of my locker. Because the first time I walked into the locker room and you're looking around, I see my number. My name is on the back of a jersey. I've got a nameplate up top. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I took a mental snapshot because, you as a free agent, you don't know. You could last a week, and things happen quickly. But I remember my first training camp, and I remember just feeling like, man, these are grown ass men. Like I'm a kid. I'm coming out like, I'm baby faced. Like, I'm playing against 30-year-olds that they're dads. I mean, they've got kids over here on the sideline. So it's just a totally different world coming out of college, and everybody's in the same kind of age group. And I'll never forget Darius Holland, whose head was about as big as a Volkswagen with his helmet on. My very first one-on-one pass rush in training camp, full pads, I get up and I'm going up against a rookie, Darius Holland, who practiced the entire day with a full dip in his mouth and just would let it just drip down his chin and into his shirt. By the end of practice, his whole shirt was brown. He tells the rookie, get out of the way. This is my rep. So I'm like, here we go. I'm playing center. I played left tackle in college, so it was a new position for me anyways. And he proceeds to give me this Deacon Jones head slap. And I mean, just like knocks me in the next week. I'm looking out of my ear hole. It's my first one-on-one passer in the NFL. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be a long camp. He was just kind of, showing me who's boss and showing me what's up. And at 335 pounds, I was the biggest, strongest dude I'd ever gone against. So it definitely takes you a little while physically to get adjusted. But I'll say this, when you get in the NFL, you realize that, man, even though these guys are 30 years old and 32 years old, like they still act like kids. And to me, the locker room was my favorite place. It's the place I miss the most. And a guy that you I'm sure have met and know through your time around the NFL and around guys. Ty Detmer was our backup quarterback. Tim Couch was our starting quarterback. Ty Detmer, one of my all-time favorite teammates. I learned a lot from him, and a lot of it was because he was pulling pranks on me, which I then in turn turned around and pulled pranks on Eli, and then Eli continued the tradition. So there are things that happen at Giants training camp now that can all circle back to Ty Detmer and the things that he did to me when I was a rookie.
You go over to the Giants. What was the difference in that culture versus the Browns? Yeah,
a complete shift. I think for Cleveland, in my time there, we were still just, it was almost like we didn't even know what it was like to be a good team. We didn't even know what it took. You go through practice and you think, all right, hey, we're pretty good against ourselves. You get out on Sundays and it's a totally different ball game. So coming to the Giants, I mean, I walk into the huddle the first day and, right out of the gate, it's Kurt Warner, who's our quarterback. Jeremy Shockey is our tight end. I've got Amani Toomer and Tiki Barber. I mean, I'm in a Pro Bowl huddle, like right out of the gate. Yeah. So, I mean, talent-wise, it was just totally different. But it just felt like football was, it just kind of felt easy at times. Like guys would make plays. Everything was routine. I felt like in Cleveland, we had to be perfect. I mean, you couldn't not one guy can make a mistake in order for us to win a football game. And I just, that was a complete difference. I tell you, the ownership, Cleveland, Al Lerner, rest his soul, he was a wonderful man. He was really hands-on. He was, an ex-Marine, used to come down and talk to us all the time. And his son, Randy, took over when he passed. But they were still trying to figure things out. And they were trying to build a great culture, but it was just different. Coming to the Giants, their storied franchise, and with the Maras and the Tisch family, I tell you, they really have done a phenomenal job, not just saying it, but doing it, that, once a Giant, always a Giant.
And you and Eli hook up kind of that year. Kurt is kind of in transition right there, goes on and continues to have a great career. Eli's a fresh face. Talk about a baby-faced rookie coming to town. I mean, I bet he was just kind of, I remember Eli was the third child. So Peyton and I are 2 years apart, and then Eli was 5 years younger than Peyton. So, I mean, there were times I think Eli wasn't 7 or 8 years old to realize there were stars at night. I mean, I think that, he had a babysitter a lot. He was just kind of wide-eyed. So I imagine the big city lights, kind of fun to watch him adjust to that.
Yeah, I remember when he came in, I mean, he definitely looked young. He looked, like he still hadn't shaven yet. Like it was like, this is a razor. Oh, what do I do with this? I don't need that. So that was interesting. But, then then he decides to live in Hoboken, which I think was a great move, for him, and just kind of absorbing the fabric of the environment in the city, and, not being in New York City, but like being close enough to where you could get there. I thought that was a really smart move for him. And I think that paid off for him. But I always thought he handled the position of quarterback. It's different than any other position with what you have to handle on the field and off the field. And I think, as much as, he looked like a deer in headlights, when he first came in, I think there's stories about his first mini camp, like he hit a trash can, I think, on the sideline with his first throw. And I think it skipped before it got there. So, I mean, look, he was definitely, he's human, like I know everybody has these grand, thoughts about how he's not, but yeah, he is. And I thought that Eli was never scared to show people his human side. And hey, you know what? Like, look, I have boogers just like everybody else, and he's not scared to flick them on you either. I know you know about that. But, for him to come in, I think that he always knew how important the locker room was to be one of the guys, and as well as in the huddle. But I thought he handled the whole Kurt Warner thing really well too, because Kurt started and Eli was okay with that, and I think they got along pretty well, and I think that actually served Eli well, not having to have that pressure on him, right away. It kind of let him just kind of grow a little bit, get comfortable, and make sure that he could find his way to the facility, because as you know, he's not great with directions. So the Hoboken to work drive, that took him a little while.
We all inherited my dad's lack of. That's why I have a map, because otherwise I don't even know where the hell I am. I mean, Rand McNally did not stop over to the Manning house and give us any lessons. We can't. I still. My dad will call. I mean, he's lived in New Orleans for 40 something years, 50 years, and still is like, Coop, I'm around the corner, but I still can't find your house. I'm like, Dad, dear goodness. I mean, it's remarkable. What about his hands? I mean, his hands spent a lot of time in your derriere, around your butt cheeks. Soft hands? Is it kind of rough? Was he gentle? Was he kind? Was he rough? Talk to me.
Yeah, somehow the quarterback center conversation always ends up in this place, and I think for a lot of people, it's a weird place. It's funny, as a center, you really don't really think about it. As a quarterback, I know that they can't think about it, because otherwise they'll be in shotgun all day long. But yeah, I mean, listen, whenever people ask me about, what's Eli like, I said, hey, great guy, soft hands, big knuckles. And, not everybody gets that. But that's kind of like, if I could have like a saying on his tombstone, or in his Hall of Fame speech, whatever, that would be my saying. But Eli and I thought we hit it off right out of the gates. And, it's funny because I remember him when he came in, I'm like, all right, here's this young buck. And, I was with the young Tim Couch up at Cleveland. Like, am I going to have to hold his hand, babysit him? We have to teach him everything. And it's funny, he came in as a rookie and he knew way more football than I've seen some second and third year quarterbacks know. So I actually learned a lot from him, coverages and just kind of reading defenses and blitzes and seeing things. So the mental side of it was always fun, but the physical side, I think the one thing that Eli always appreciated was throwing a dry ball. And that's not easy when you have a 300-pound center that gets swamped and is a huge sweater. So
I'm craving soup right now. Hang on, swamp.
Yeah,
I'm just ready for a little.
That soup right there is pretty much what would ruin a 3-step drop for Eli on a hot summer day. The worst part was like in practice when we wear mesh shorts, the sweat would just drip off the shorts. Like the pants are different because like it kind of harnesses everything, but the shorts, there's no absorption whatsoever. So Eli used to make me change my pants at halftime on hot games.
Really?
Because he didn't like his hands getting all wet and sweaty. And, the things you do for your quarterback, that I still to this day feel bad for the equipment guys. Little Ed Skiba had to help me get my sweaty pants off and on. And, I'm standing there in a jock strap and he's putting my thigh pads in the new dry pants. And we're doing this also Eli doesn't have to throw a wet ball.
You must sweat a lot because at some point in your career, early on, you had athlete's foot, a bad episode of that. It almost wiped out the whole locker room. What's going on, Shaun? Dear goodness.
So we got to clarify this. Look, if you play football and you're in the locker room and you shower with 55 other guys, everybody has athlete's foot. So you get it at some point in time. That's not what sent me to the hospital. I know Eli has told you that, and he loves telling that story. And I just tell him, hey, look, I've always been a fun guy. So, I think that the truth is I developed an infection. Now they don't know. Eli claims it was from the athlete's foot, but it was cellulitis in my leg. It turned into staph. Yeah, and as you know, the staph infection kind of became a very big topic, especially, in the warmer climates. It can spread really fast. So, so they, I had this swelling down my leg, and I told the trainers about it. They made me go out and practice that day. They took a Sharpie, Coop, and they drew a circle around it. And they were like, all right, keep your eye on this. If this circle gets any bigger than a Sharpie, then you need to come show us. So I'm like, really? That's our medical expertise right now? We've got a freaking Sharpie? It's like, if you drew a map right now around Nevada, and you were like, hey, if it gets any bigger, come tell us.
Nevada, right here.
Yeah. So the next day I come in and it's like the size of the entire country behind me. So, I'm like, yeah, this is bad. We're outside the circle. So I immediately go in and show them. They're like, you need to go to the hospital right now. This is spreading and we can't let it get to your bloodstream. So, they sent me into HSS, the hospital for special surgery. I saw the infectious disease doctor to he said, look, we need to get you on IV antibiotics right now, vancomycin, which is like the strongest thing you can get. He said, we want to make sure this isn't MRSA. MRSA is, that can be life and death. So luckily it wasn't, but they got me on IV antibiotics to try to hit it right away. And unfortunately I missed that game and the next game and Eli and the boys never let me live it down.
Speaking of hospital, Shaun, who would you play against in your career the next morning? You're like, just get me to the hospital. This guy just beats me up. So John Randall was the toughest guy that I ever played against one-on-one, but I'll tell you, one of the hardest hitters ever was Jeremiah Trotter, the middle linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles. And like his celebratory, move anytime he made a big play was this big axe smash. And like the guy he had his head and his neck. It was like a cinder block. Like every time you went up to hit it, there was no give, there was no move. And like, he didn't even care to make the tackle, Coop. Like if he saw you were coming to block him, he just wanted to blow you up and he'll let somebody else make the tackle. But he was, I can't tell you how many times playing against him and the Eagles that I'd have a hit with him and I'd think, oh my God, did I just swallow a mouthpiece? Like the hit was like, it was that much of a collision. And you're like, something just went down my throat. I hope it wasn't my mouthpiece. I don't know what that was, but like, it makes you like gulp. Have you played before also and been in awe of someone? Like you're on the sideline going, there's like kind of a turn into a, even when you're 30, do you revert back to being a kid sometimes, just on the other side of the seeing a player?
When I came to Cleveland, our number one overall pick that year was Courtney Brown out of Penn State. I don't think I've ever seen somebody that physically chiseled. I mean, he was 6'6", 290 pounds. I mean, 3% body fat. And like when he turned sideways, like in the shower, like you couldn't see the other guy on the other side. He was that wide. Like just, when it was in the weight room with the bench press, his arms were outside of the rack that you put the bar on. Like that's how long his arms were. So, I mean, when I saw him, I'm like, man, I'm so glad he's on my team when I don't have to try to block him. But in practice, I mean, he was a total nightmare. So, yeah, those guys like that, you never forget seeing a guy as physically gifted as that. I didn't play with him, but Odell Beckham, watching him in practice and seeing some of the things that he does with the football and with his jump leap ability, the jumps, the catches. I mean, some of that is just unbelievable. And even when you think you've seen something remarkable, he goes out on a routine practice catch and just, he's got this wow factor to him.
This is an interesting transition because you mentioned showering twice, and we're talking about in the NFL right now, always when we were growing up, high school, college, whatever, it's just a big room with a bunch of shower heads. You go in there, take a shower, and get out of there. Is it still that way in the NFL, or do they have individual stalls now? Do you know?
Oh no, it's still prison showers.
Okay.
Yeah, you're into the wide open, no doubt. And I think that's probably the best way to maximize space. I don't know. I'll say this now with COVID, who knows? There may be plexiglass in between each shower, which would make things even weirder. And now guys are going to run into stuff. I don't know. You hit your head if you drop something. I don't know. But yeah, the shower scene is, I'm sure, maybe they have to do in shifts. I don't know. Maybe it is more prison-like in that you had to go by position group or whatever. But I think especially now with everybody being vaccinated, they don't have to wear a mask the entire time. I couldn't imagine wearing a mask in the shower, but
if I was going to wear a mask in the shower, it was going to be around my waist.
Yeah, you would probably. Yeah, would you be one of those guys that wore boxers in the shower? Because there's always like one guy.
If I'm showering next to Courtney Brown, I might consider it. Yeah, because it's funny, because the high school, like I was talking to high school kids, we used to have a shower. Coach made a shower. You had to shower before you went home, shower after basketball practice. And now people leave the locker room and they smell, maybe been sweating for 4 hours. You smell like, hey, I want to come over and, I'm going to get out of my house, jump in the pool or something, just it's the most disgusting thing, but no one showers. I think they have to have their own little deal. It's not like the old days. You just, man up. It's weird.
Yeah, I think things have definitely changed. I mean, we had showers in high school, and some guys would shower after gym class, so it just used to be like, hey, that's what you do. I remember, playing a high school basketball game, and you get done with it, and I would always shower, and all the other guys wouldn't, and then some of them would just hang up their jersey in the locker and not even wash the jersey. Like you come in the next day and the thing is like standing stiff on its own in the locker. And yeah, I mean, when you're in high school, hygiene just kind of goes out the door.
That's the best way to get MRSA, I think.
Well, you know what? Yeah, you don't want to get MRSA, but the one part I left out about that trip was I met my wife in the hospital. She was my nurse on that exact weekend. So
is that right?
So for me, I don't want anybody to get MRSA or get staph, but if you happen to get it, you might as well get a wife out of it, like I did.
Hey man, how's your game is pretty good when you're just lying in bed, just talking. I mean, you got people coming and tending to you and treating you. Might as well check out some of your best New Jersey lines and see if they stick.
I'm glad you brought that up. Like nobody's really actually put that connection together. But I mean, if you can score in the hospital when you haven't shaved in 3 days, you haven't showered in 3 days, you've got athlete's foot, and you've got an IV, like you look like crap, but you could still get a girl's number at that point in time in your life, then you must have some sort of G in you.
You got it.
Because not everybody could pull that off. And I always kind of felt like, hey, if I can get her number, wait till she sees me when I'm cleaned up. Wait till she sees me with some cologne on.
God, a good smelling New Jersey guy. Unbelievable. Shaun, have you gotten into Twitter? Are you a Twitter guy now? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I feel like if I go on it, like it's like playing video games. Like you just lose track of time. So it's like I always try to be very selective when I go on it because you start reading stuff and it's like there's like 20 things you want to read and you can never get to them because your timeline's always refreshing. So, I'm still learning about Twitter, but I enjoy it. It's fun. My humor, I don't know if people always get it, so I'm always worried I might throw something out there and then people are gonna be now everybody wants to cancel it. It's like, come on, can we take a joke? Like, come on, it's social media.
Yeah, everybody's very sensitive these days. You gotta be super careful. Yeah, and plus, text and words can be confusing on how you say things. I'm glad. I don't trust my judgment to be on Twitter quite yet. So
you can't. There's no setting for the tone in a text.
Right.
Like you could talk to somebody and you can give them a sarcastic tone. You can kind of do it in a playful way with your tone. There is no tone in text. Like you could text somebody nice shirt, like oh nice shirt, and they read it as nice shirt. Like, well, you don't like my shirt? No, I was actually telling you I liked your shirt. But
good point. Very good point. I'm glad. I hope people don't just read a transcript of this because they'll never watch the show if they see what happened on this version of Soup with Coop. I'd be remiss without talking about, people in camp. Players are in camp, season coming up. Any thoughts on the people will probably want to hear what you have to say about the Giants and then any sleepers?
Yeah, listen, I call it summer camp, Coop, because we can't call it training camp. I think you guys had more practices in the Manning Passing Academy in 3 days than most teams do in a week. Times have definitely changed. And they can't. The Giants were in practice for an entire week before they even put shoulder pads on. So it's this ramping up period. And I feel like camp used to be, hey, we have 2 weeks to just beat the snot out of each other and get ready for the preseason game so you can make the team. Now it's, like we just want to get ready for the season to start. And I think it's so hard for the bubble guys, the guys that are trying to make the team. You're limited on reps. How do you get better? You're trying to prove yourself. And, you just have limited amount of time, snaps, games. That's all tough. So training camp has definitely changed. I think the guys, I tell you, the funny thing is training camp used to be miserable. Everybody be sore and tired and hot, except for the quarterbacks and the kickers. They always had tons of energy. But now you look at training camp and everybody's laughing, everybody's smiling, everybody's doing interviews, everybody's posting stuff. And, they have more energy because they're only practicing 1 day. So that part of it is definitely different. But I think the most important part right now in every NFL training camp is how do we keep our guys healthy? How do we just get them to week 1 and then, try to make sure that we don't lose anybody before the season starts. So that's where everybody's at.
I always like to watch Hard Knocks. How quickly would the meeting have gone when they approached Tom Coughlin about whether shooting Hard Knocks for his practices? How do you think that would have gone?
Yeah, no way in hell. You want to do what? You want to put cameras in my team meeting room? No, not happening. No, he would not like that at all. And you know what? To be honest with you, his Saturday night meetings before the game were so damn long. They would never be able to edit it and crop it to get into a 30-minute show. As a player, the one thing that Hard Knocks, that nobody ever talks about or thinks about is if you're on Hard Knocks. Now, like what happens if you're the second or third offensive lineman or defensive lineman on a team? You're trying to make a name for yourself. Every practice is a game because I'm on Hard Knocks. Like even if I don't make this team, I want somebody to see me. So it's like people are going full tilt. I would think you'd have to tell people, hey, chill out, settle down. Well, not while the cameras are rolling. I've got HBO here and everybody watching. I want to make a play. Maybe today's the day. So I'm sure that kind of ratchets things up in practice a little bit.
Shaun, as always, we like to grade our soup. You, being the mature human you are, from 1 to 1,000, how is your alphabet soup? I like it a little cold just to kind of wrap up, make sure. Oh, yeah, it tastes just as good hot as it cold when you're dealing with my Campbell's soup.
I don't know if you could see this, but I got an A. I got an A right there. A for effort. I don't know if you guys do that.
I think A for effort. Exactly. A starts with effort right around here. It's that Rutgers Ole Miss combo. Shaun, thanks again for joining me. Always great to catch up, and I look forward to seeing you in the fall. Keep up the good work on the NFL Network, and best to you and your family.
All right, thanks, Coop. Appreciate it, man. Next time you're up to Jersey, I'll take you out for some other soup.
Amen. I'm in.